Here's a question of the day. What are some of your favorite things to do to rest and recover?
I really enjoy walking. I've started to, I guess I'm an old man now. I've started walking outside with no music.
Wow.
I just listen. And I'm having a great time with it. Like the other day, last week it was raining. And so I popped out the umbrella and I just listened to the sound of the rain as I walked around. I was like, what am I, like 80? Like I'm walking around like, I just love the sound of the rain on this umbrella.
I got an email the other day from older couple, saying some other stuff. And then at the end, they just told me about the weather and the birds singing outside.
Apparently that's going to be me at like 35.
I know. And I was like, I don't even do that. And I'm going to be 60 soon. It's just one of those things. It's like, gosh, I need to do that. I think that's something for me. Rest and recovery is getting to bed, having a good night's sleep. My body, I'm in a good place right now. I get 7 to 8 and my body wakes up naturally. I don't have to have an alarm most of the time. And I like that. I like, because when you wake up on your own, there's just something about that.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I feel good.
Somebody else didn't make me up.
I know.
Make me get up,
So yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things. And then I like recovery for me is like if I spend the evening, I'm cooking, listening to a podcast, those things kind of recharge me, I think, more than anything else.
Reading. I think that's one for both of us.
It is.
We both like reading.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things. We could go on and on.
There is. Yeah. And rest and recovery, kind of a forgotten art. Our society kind of pushes us to never stop. Go, go, go. We even have people who will brag about how busy they are.
Yeah.
How little sleep they get. It's almost a flex in the world. I only need 2 hours of sleep and then I drink 7 Red Bulls. It's like, that can't be good.
That's kind of dumb.
Yeah, that's not good. So the reality is we're not designed to go nonstop. And sometimes as men, rest and recovery becomes something we see as less. We see it as, I shouldn't do this. But today we're going to look at what rest and recovery is. We're going to give you some tips because it really helps you live the way you were designed.
This is the Thriving Man Podcast with David and Reese Maxwell. These weekly shows are designed to help you remove the confusion from your life and make real progress with your growth. No matter where you are or where you're going, we're here to help you live a life you can be proud of. So welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast.
Welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast. I am Reese.
And I'm David.
And he is my dad. And today we are talking about something that is both physically beneficial and philosophically beneficial.
Yeah,
it's part of being a holistic person. That is rest and recovery. So in today's fast-paced world, it's very easy to overlook rest and recovery. Nobody looks at that and it's like, wow, that's a great idea. It's more like, I wish I could do that, but too bad,
Yeah, and it's almost like there's a whole industry of things to help you not have to rest and recovery. You've got the energy drinks, you've got supplements, you got all these things.
That's
and I wonder
point.
if sometimes we do those things to kind of augment the fact that we're not getting the rest and recovery we need.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. In fact, a lot of this stems from, and we wouldn't say this out loud, but there's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of assumptions that underlie us personally and our culture about rest and recovery.
Yeah, that's true.
The first one we can talk about is a lot of us think that resting is a sign of laziness.
Yeah.
We think if you're hustling, you're successful.
Yeah.
And by hustling, we mean 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
All the time. And resting equals lazy,
Yeah, we do that. We look at people when they talk about, they need their sleep or they do stuff like this. I think there's this tendency to, you're weak, when they may be actually the smartest one. They may be the one who has the more energy to their life, or they just enjoy their life a whole lot more.
Yeah.
And I think we do. I think we tend to see it as, you can't rest, you got to hustle, you got to grind. I mean, the entrepreneurial world, as I've gotten into that.
Very much like that.
It's very much, when it comes to business, they're like, you just got to get out there. You got to speak at everything you can speak at and do those things. And there is some truth to that.
You got to chase people down and grab them and give them a pamphlet and walk them through the sales process before before they can get away from you
Yeah.
and then do it again.
And then do it again. And there's even that, we think of the business world, but even in ministry, coming from ministry and seeing guys who they almost go to that CEO level of ministry where they're not so much caring for people as they're checking the numbers. What were our numbers Sunday? What were our numbers in this, that, and the other? And numbers aren't a bad thing, but when that's what you live for,
Right.
that's the problem.
Yeah. And even musicians talking about how many tours they've done, a rapper talking about being on their grind 24/7, how they lifted themselves up from the bottom and are now on top. So like there's a lot of stuff contributing to that mentality. Oh, if I'm resting, I'm not being like them. And they're the one who's killing it.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Number two, a lot of times, and this is in the same vein, but it's slightly different, we think that rest is time wasted.
Yeah, I think there's this thing that I want to be productive.
Yeah.
And I think productivity is not a bad thing.
No.
But it's almost become a religion for a lot of people where, they want to do everything perfectly all the time. And they don't realize that sometimes just doing nothing or doing something that maybe is not seen as productive, where sitting and reading a book, walking in the rain with an umbrella, most of us would be like, that's weird.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah. But you think about how rested you get after that, and just the mental recovery. And I think people are starting to realize that today, that, okay, my brain is going nonstop. I need to do something to slow it down. And if you look, anxiety's at an increase, depression, all these things. And you wonder how much of that is more, they're just not getting rest. They're not really recovering themselves.
Yeah, we see it as a waste because we have this unspoken assumption that every minute I sit here and read or sit here and chill is a minute that I could be, in the entrepreneurial world, making a sale.
Yep. Yeah.
I could be closing a deal, or if you're a minister, I could be going and witnessing.
Yeah.
I could be working on my sermon. Or if you're exercising, I could be going and getting reps in the gym. If you're a fix-em-up DIY kind of guy, I can't sit here on the couch. There's stuff that needs doing around the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the problem is that list never ends.
It doesn't.
Of stuff that needs to happen in every realm of your life. So if you don't prioritize rest even when those things are there, you're always going to have that guilt in the back of your mind, like, I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting my time. When it's not. Rest is an investment. And we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Let's get to the third unspoken assumption.
Okay.
More is always better. More work is always better. More grinding is always more beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of us have that attitude where, well, I need to be doing more. My neighbor, on the weekend paints his house every other weekend. His yard is perfect and all this stuff. And so we kind of compare ourselves to other people when their lifestyle may be completely different from ours. And so what you want to do is understand, where am I at in life? That is a huge part of understanding, what should I expect from myself? If you're a dad with 3 young kids, you're not going to have a lot of extra time to do a lot of projects and things. So you want to take that into consideration and then not live with this guilt. Because I think a lot of us just have this guilt, I should be doing more. And that's not an excuse to not do anything, but you want to balance that and understand that more doesn't mean you're better. And I think that's what we do, is we look at it as, well, I got a lot done, so I'm a good person. And we don't learn how to just rest in, hey, this is who I am. This is the stage of life I'm in. Let me focus on what's really important.
And we got to remember that quality matters as much as quantity, if not more.
Yeah.
So like, think about a restaurant. Like McDonald's makes more burgers per day than Five Guys Burgers and Fries does.
Yeah.
But which one do you want to go to?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's sure not McDonald's.
Yeah.
McDonald's has got quantity.
Yeah.
Like, they've got that down. But the quality is not the same. It's not as good as it could be. And a lot of us treat our life like that. More time at work is better. Not necessarily. You can spend 8 to 10 hours a day of work and only get 1 to 2 hours of productivity in easy. Yeah. There's a lot of people who do that. They show up to work and they just coast, and they try and look like they're working hard. They don't do anything. But that's every area. We can't focus so much on the number of quantity that we forget the quality. Rest is about developing quality.
It is. And a lot of people, it's funny when they get to an older stage of life or they're at the end of life, you rarely hear people talk about, I wish I'd spent more time at work.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know, in fact, Papa, before he passed away, he was talking with Mimi, the grandparents, in-laws, and he said to her, "Why did I spend all that time at work?" He said, "I could have left earlier than I did."
Wow.
He said, I just felt the pressure to stay.
Wow.
And it was a powerful thing for him to have that realization, because he used to work long hours, 10, 12 hours a day.
Wow.
And you know, when he's laying in bed, getting close to the end of his life, he started questioning, why did I do that?
Dang.
And I think for a lot of people, it's not until those moments that they really think clearly about it.
Yeah. No, that's actually very powerful. I think another unspoken assumption we have is that rest is for people who are weak.
Yeah.
Oh, if you were just stronger.
Yeah.
If you just had more energy. If you were just like that person. I think comparison is at the core of a lot of it.
It is. I think so.
And I'll use an example from my own life. There was a person in our college back when I was at university. Her name was Tiffany. Legitimately felt rested and energized off of 4 hours of sleep.
Golly.
You know how they talk about like that 1% that's
Yeah.
like the super sleepers?
Yeah.
Actually her. Because after 4 hours, like she's the most bubbly, positive person I know.
Yeah.
She was in like 16 different clubs.
Of course.
She was making great grades. She worked and volunteered at a special needs school and, you know, was in a relationship at the same time.
Wow.
She was juggling 75 different balls and killing it. You know, she was spinning 25 different plates. And so everyone had like this unspoken, like, man, one day I'll grow up and be like her. But the truth is, for me, if I grew up to be like her, it would be a compromise because that's not who I am.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't get 4 hours of sleep and be good.
No, there's no way.
Sometimes I get 7 hours of sleep and I'm like, oh gosh, help me, Lord. You know, and juggling things. I have a very specific limit. Like once I get past a certain point, I start getting into grumpy old man mode.
Yep. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh gosh, this is so stupid. Everything I'm doing is dumb. You know, like I wouldn't be good in her position. But there's an assumption like, oh, well, I'm weak.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not strong enough to do that. I don't have enough energy to do that. I'm not, in the Christian world, I'm not godly enough
Yeah. Yeah.
to be like that person.
Yeah.
And that is an assumption that will kill you if you live by that.
Yeah, and I think we do. I think it's a comparison thing. And what we have to do is learn to be ourselves, learn to be, okay, who am I? What are my strengths and weaknesses? You know, I may not be a person who can get 4 hours of sleep at night, but that doesn't mean I don't have gifts, I don't have abilities.
Yeah.
And I think we want to lean into those and not try to be someone else, but just say, okay, who am I?
Yeah.
What am I doing to maximize my life, to have the most strong relationships, to have connections with people and all kinds of things like that?
Well, because the people in your life need you. They don't need, well, in my case, Tiffany.
Yeah,
You know, Emily doesn't need a Tiffany kind of person. She
No.
needs Reese, you know,
Yeah.
and that's the same for your kids. They don't need someone else as a dad. They need you as a dad, you know, so that we can't let comparison make us think, oh, I'm being weak if I'm resting, so I got to do more.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff under the surface that plays into why we make these assumptions. So there are a lot of factors on a personal level, a cultural level, a lot of assumptions that go into why we don't think rest is a positive thing.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and talk about why it matters.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the physical benefits of rest and recovery,
Yeah.
literally for your body. What would you say is one of the first ones?
Well, when you take time to rest and recover, what you're doing is you're letting your body do what it does naturally. You know, it's repairing things. It's helping you overcome things. There's all kinds of things that happen when you sleep, when you rest. Your body has a chance to say, okay, now let me work on this, let me work on that. And a lot of repairing of your muscles, of your stress levels going down, cortisol levels going down, all those things can happen when you give yourself that time to rest, because that's how our bodies are designed. God designed our bodies to do things like that. But if we think we know more than God, we're like, oh, I don't need that. You really do. Or it's going to hurt you in the long run.
No, I mean, I agree. Any quality personal trainer will tell you to take rest days.
Mm-hmm.
Now, an idiot will tell you to work out and do heavy lifting every single day.
Yeah.
Because that's just not going to be effective. One, if you're going to like gain muscle, for example, one, you need a lot of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And two, you need to take those rest days.
Yeah.
So there is this benefit to your muscle tissue, to your joints. Like the amount that sleep helps you is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it also plays a big part in our immune system function.
It does.
I've been listening to a podcast on sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and they were talking about like a lot of the people that get like 1 to 1.5 hours less sleep than their counterparts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, their immune system goes down 20 to 25%.
Wow.
So like noticeable, non-trivial numbers of how much worse somebody's immune system does when they're going on like 6 to less than 6 hours of sleep.
Well, it's true. Like a lot of us, we get into a real busy season. We're going.
Mm-hmm.
And then we say, oh, I got sick. Well, you wonder if it's the body's way of, okay, you're going to rest whether you want to or not.
Exactly.
It makes me think of that old movie, Osmosis Jones, to where, Bill Murray played that guy who never did anything
Just
good.
kind of a slob.
Yeah,
and
just-
pushed himself all the time.
Yeah, did all this stuff. And I think a lot of us, we may think, well, I'm not that bad. But we may be, because if you never rest, if you never take time to recover, you're gonna hurt yourself. If you're training too hard, you're gonna injure yourself. If you're not doing the other, your immune system's gonna get weakened. And I think sometimes we don't realize how important that is. And we think, oh, I got sick because of this person or that person. You probably got sick because you just let yourself get worn down.
Yeah, it's true. So in the physical realm, sleep and just resting in general
Yeah.
gives you the opportunity to reduce the risk of injuries. A lot of people that hurt themselves in the gym or hurt themselves in their everyday don't get great rest, don't get great sleep. But it also helps restore your energy. It's almost like a cool down.
Yeah. Yeah.
For those who play video games, it's kind of like the PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 2, if you played it for too long without shutting it off,
Yeah.
would start sounding like a jet engine. Like I'm talking, it's like you're having to try and listen to the TV to hear the dialogue over the PlayStation 2. Like, and I think the PlayStation 3 was like that as well. It had this tendency to overheat if you just kept using it. That's kind of how your body is.
Mm-hmm.
Your body will lower its effectiveness and how it functions
Yeah.
if you keep going. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, and I remember reading one time there was a guy who was a big triathlete. He was one of the top in the world. And he said after he retired, looking back, he said, one of the things I wish I had done more of is trained a little less, lifted weights more, and got more rest.
Yeah.
Because he talked about how he thinks a lot of his injuries and things that happened, because there was a season where he just was injured all the time, he said was just overtraining. I was just doing too much, trying to push myself instead of letting my body heal itself.
That's good.
Yeah.
Because it will if you give it the time. But we have to remember, and this is where we go from physical to kind of philosophical, not only is rest very good for your body, in fact, we'd say absolutely necessary. Rest is very good and necessary for your mind. Your mind gets a lot of benefits. For example, resting and recharging is key for reducing anxiety levels. Stress hormones being elevated a lot of times is in people who don't sleep very well or don't sleep much.
Yeah, and I think we see that today. I mean, a lot of people are on some type of anxiety medication. And I'm not saying there's not a legitimate case for some of that, but I think a lot of it is people are just not getting the rest they need. So their body never de-stresses. So they go to sleep stressed, they wake up stressed, they have that fight or flight response all the time. We carry our phones with us all the time, so things are always happening on there and pulling at us. And we never get a chance to just let our minds take a break.
I've heard there was a neuroscientist that uses the phrase tired and wired. You're tired, like you're kind of just exhausted, and you're wired because your brain's kind of in emergency mode. And you're like, okay, I'll just pop some caffeine and we'll be good. And caffeine is not a replacement for rest. A lot of people who need caffeine are people who just don't take the time to rest and are using caffeine to just get through the day.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help your mind.
No, and that's where rest and recovery really helps you with just your ability to think clearly.
That's true.
To have clarity about situations, to be emotionally present in situations. Your mind's not wandering and going places. Like there are times we're all trying to get work done, but we're just not there mentally, and you're just having to slog through it. You often don't do your best work in those moments.
No.
But then there's moments where you're in the zone, you're flowing, maybe you've had the rest and all. You understand that I got so much done in this time. And I think we don't see the correlation. When you're getting the rest, the recharging, your brain is freshened. You bring that to whatever you're doing and you can do a better job.
And that includes relationships. And that's a huge one.
Yeah.
If you are not properly rested, if you aren't sleeping well, and if you don't actually take time to do non-productive work activities, if you're just constantly on, you're not going to have the mental, cognitive, and emotional functioning to make and hold good relationships.
Yeah, because everything becomes an issue. Why did they say that to me? What's their problem? And you start seeing things that may or may not be there, or you start dropping hints that the other person should understand, and that's just not good. And I also think today, a lot of people just live in this escapism world, like we've talked about before, where they don't rest and recharge, but they do binge watch, or they do game for hours upon hours. It's their way of doing a rest and recharge, but it doesn't really take them to that place. And that's why I also think a lot of people are just lonely today. They're going from relationship to relationship. They're thinking this person will bring me peace. They'll fix all this. And it's just that they're not doing the rest and recharging to where they can bring a whole them to a relationship and actually have a better relationship and actually have a deeper emotional connection with someone.
Yeah, because relationships are work.
They are.
Like they're super rewarding. They're necessary for functioning. But you're not going to get to do whatever you want, whenever you want, when there's another person in the picture.
Yeah.
That includes marriage, yes. That includes kids, yes. But that also includes friends.
It does.
There's going to be times where you and your friend are hanging out and they want to do something different than you.
Yeah.
If you're not well rested, you're probably going to make that a much bigger deal than it really is. Probably your worst fights in your marriage, your worst parenting decisions, most likely those didn't happen when you were feeling rested and refreshed.
Yeah,
it's usually when you are at the end of your rope, you're tired, you're frustrated, and you didn't take a second to pause and rest in between what the person said and your response.
Yeah.
And what comes out's not pretty.
Yeah. Well, and we look at people who suffer burnout, or they have to get away for a while, or they get into some kind of addictive behavior. A lot of times that's a response to the fact that they're never resting, they're not recovering, and they feel lonely, and it just kind of builds on itself. Like I'm a K-pop fan, and every once in a while you find some of the artists in K-pop groups who have to take a break.
They're mental health breaks.
Yep, they call them mental health breaks, and it's literally because they've learned how to cope in unhealthy ways, or they're just so burnt out they can't do anything because their schedule is brutal. And so they have to pull back for a while. And I'm glad the industry is actually recognizing that. But imagine if they built in rest and recovery to the artist, they wouldn't have to take the mental health breaks because they're getting those naturally.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of the unhealthy parts of the culture, I think, feed into that.
They do, yeah.
Sleep and rest also helps with an area that you might not think, problem solving. If you've ever heard the phrase, well, I'll just sleep on it.
Yeah.
Or you need to just sleep on it.
Yeah.
That's actually a real thing. Like when you are sleeping, your subconscious works on a problem.
Yeah.
When you're resting and not thinking about a problem, a lot of times that's when you get a revelation. You know, like maybe you're on a walk.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're just hanging out, sitting there, chilling. And that's when it clicks. You're like, oh my gosh, that's what I need to do. Oh my goodness, this is what's going on. And you're not trying to think through it.
Yeah.
You're just resting.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember reading a while back that there's a lot of people who were famous authors over history, and it says a lot of them were notorious for walking. Like they would write in the morning and then go for long walks just to let their mind recover from that. And also just to let their mind work on whatever they were writing on.
Yeah, to think about it.
Yeah, and I think that's something we need to be intentional about, and not intentional as a productivity way. I'm being productive at resting. No, it's resting. It's relaxing. It's finding those things that kind of speak life into you and help you bring more of yourself to your relationships. If you're well rested, you're probably going to be able to solve the problems of relational issues, job issues, things like that, and you'll be able to bring more of yourself to it.
Yeah. So we've talked about the benefits for your body. We've now talked about the benefits for your mind and your emotion.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the benefits to your performance. Everybody neglects rest in the name of productivity, but the truth is rest actually helps productivity.
Yeah, well, you look at sports people, if they're not resting and recovering, they're going to get injured. And then they're going to be out for weeks, which could be very hard on a team or whatever performance they're in. So it's something we've got to really think about. You will optimize your performance when you're getting the rest and recovery you need, no matter what you do.
Yeah, in fact, a good example of this is Roger Federer. He was in tennis for like 2 decades or more, honestly.
Very high level.
Yeah, and he was always like probably top 5 to top 10 in the world. When you look at his schedule, he slept 10 hours a night.
Yeah.
And then he practiced for a couple hours, he took a break, and then he practiced for a couple more hours, and then he rested.
Yeah.
When you looked at his daily training schedule, you wouldn't think like, man, this is a top guy. You'd think like, oh, he should be out there 10 hours. He should be out there practicing his hits, making sure those volleys are crisp and good for 10 hours. No. He spent a lot of time resting because he recognized that his work was very physically taxing.
Yeah.
And so he needed even more rest than the average person. But you can't argue with top 5 to top 10 for 20 years.
Well, and that's the physical realm, but even if you work in business or you have a white collar type job, your mind is getting taxed. You're mentally going through things and doing stuff. It also needs rest. And that's something you're going to have to remember. And then we talk about the relational world. Having to, I want to bring all of myself to a relationship. Well, if you're not getting the rest and recovery, you're going to be a little chippy. You're not going to know what to do. That's why we encourage people to take their time off, take their vacations, pull and unplug from work fully. If you need to say, I'm not taking my phone, or
don't bring your work laptop.
Yeah, no, don't bring it. That's why we love cruising, because you're kind of away from everything. You're like, I'm on the cruise ship. Well, they have Wi-Fi. Oh, but it's not good. And you're like, you can't get to me. Things like that. Be intentional about that, and you'll be able to bring more of yourself to those situations.
Yeah, well, like in marriage, dating is just a rest and recovery method.
It is.
It's an opportunity for you two to step away from all your responsibilities as parents or as just adults.
Yeah.
And just be together. That's healthy for that relationship.
Yeah.
For your family, like you said, vacations. Vacations are times for you to make memories with your kids.
Yeah.
And the issue is it shouldn't happen just once a year.
Yeah.
That's our problem. You can't spend, 360 days looking forward to your 5 days of sweet release from your normal daily life.
Yeah.
If you live like that, you're not going to be effective.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is what I want us to be able to walk away with as we're about to move into the application side. We have to be just as intentional about our rest
We do.
as we are about our work.
Yeah.
The issue in our world today is we focus a lot on work, and we're intentional with that. We read the books about that. We have the community to support us in being productive in work, but we don't have any of that when it comes to rest.
Yeah.
We don't have that same level of intentionality. And if we don't, the results of our life will go down, like the productivity, but also our health will go down, and our relationships will too.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times our rest isn't as life-giving as it could be, because we end up just vegging. I'm just going to sit and watch, I'm going to binge watch 5 shows of something.
Or I'm going to be on TikTok for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm not saying those are necessarily bad things sometimes, but if that's your only level of rest, you're not really getting that full recovery, I don't think.
Well, let's just look at the mental aspect of it. Shows, movies, and especially social media
Yeah.
is meant to be as stimulating as possible.
Yeah.
So what you are doing, if that's all you do, once again, it's not bad to do it every once in a while, but if that's all you do, you're trying to step away from your overly stimulating life by watching and observing something that's very stimulating.
It's very stimulating. It's
so
true.
your brain's just going to be going.
Yeah.
And that's where the tired and wired comes from.
Yeah.
Because you can even be physically rested.
Yeah.
But not mentally and emotionally taking a break ever.
Yeah.
I think that's where, like you said, a lot of that anxiety comes in to where there's never any moments of stillness or slowness.
Yeah.
And that's the human brain that God made was in an environment that was agonizingly slow.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
if you were going to walk to another town to buy milk, all right, you got a couple hours to just walk.
Yeah.
And there's no such thing as a phone right now. So you're just going to have to walk and think.
You just walk and do it.
But we don't have those moments in our life anymore. So we have to be intentional about placing those moments in our life.
Yeah. That's good. I like that.
So let's talk strategy.
Okay.
What would you say is the first strategy that the guys need to work on in order to get to this next level quality of life?
Yeah, I think the first thing you should do, the easiest one and the hardest one in some ways, is prioritizing sleep. You know, that 7 to 9 hours of real quality sleep, building a friendly sleep environment, doing what you need to do in your room to have good sleep. I was talking with someone yesterday and we were talking about having a cold room, you know, keeping it dark. Those are things you can do, using some type of white noise thing. Those are all things that have shown to help people get better sleep. And what you want to do is prioritize like that. I don't recommend having a TV in your bedroom. Keep that off. You know, do something to where your bedroom almost becomes your sanctuary of rest. And then that way you feel as you walk in there, okay, it's time to unplug. And I think doing that, it may be hard. It may be a struggle at first, but you can really help yourself just by getting good sleep. And you say, well, I don't get good sleep. Well, look at some of the things you do. Are you drinking caffeine right before bed? Are you doing things? Even if you have to, you know, there's places out there that will do a sleep study on you and help you figure out how to get good rest. If you're not getting good sleep, the other stuff's going to be hard to do. I think
Absolutely.
it starts with your sleep.
Yeah. Sleep, I would say, is probably number one. Number two, remembering to take regular breaks in your workday is going to be important. That book, Built to Move, that we've read, we've talked about it a few different times on the podcast, but there have been studies that show that a person walking for 20 minutes increases their brain function.
Yeah.
Right? And what is our work environment? You're sitting
Yeah.
at a desk, staring at a computer. And then you go to your meeting and you sit and you stare. And then you go, you know, everywhere you go, you're sitting and you're staring.
You're sitting, yep.
So there's a
Yep.
lack of motion. There's a lack of a mental stimulation and physical stimulation. So our recommendation is to get up and stretch and go for a walk if you're in that zone where you're like, I can't freaking do this,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and even if you can't walk, you know, I've done it where sometimes I'll be working on something and I just get tired and I'll just drop down and do some push-ups.
That's a good
You know,
point. You
do
could
something
that.
physical that kind of gets you away from the sitting and staring mode. A walk is good if you ever, or if you're going to another place in the office, take the stairs. Don't take the elevator. Do so, you know, you do 3-4 flights of stairs, your blood's going to be flowing. You're going to be breathing, and that's going to be good for you.
Yeah, and I always find that when I get back to the office from doing that for a few minutes,
Yeah.
I'm much more mentally engaged with what I was doing, and I'm going to do more quality work.
Yeah,
If your
yeah.
boss doesn't get that, sneak it in. You know, just be sneaky.
Yeah,
'cause-
find a way.
Yeah, it's important. 3, incorporate active rest. Now, what do we mean by that? It's well, actually, you explain.
Well, it involves doing something that doesn't take a lot of physical side to you, but you get a lot of benefits of it. It can be something like, you know, you go for a walk, like you just talked about, you know, going swimming, doing something like even pickleball. I mean, that's kind of blowing up all over the world.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't necessarily understand it all, but you know, finding a hobby, doing something you enjoy. Like if you and a couple guys play basketball once a week at a gym, or you go to a class, a workout class. Those are things you can do that, even though it does take some activity, it's almost restful to you. Because even some of those activities will actually help you sleep better that night. But they don't have to be things like where you say, well, I hate jogging, my knees are bad. Well, don't jog. Ride a bike. Go for a walk. There's things you can do that are low impact, but help you find those ways to unplug and kind of get that recovery thing going.
Yeah. So that's a good physical way to be doing things, but also recovering.
Yeah.
Mentally, if you want to be stimulated but also be recovering, reading is a great option.
It is.
And we're talking about reading real books.
Yeah.
Or if you have a piece of technology you're reading on, it's a Kindle Paperwhite. It can't be your phone. It can't be your iPad. And the reason is those notifications and that beautiful little TikTok symbol, that little Instagram icon will inevitably pull you back in because it's easier to do.
Yeah.
So reading a real book, and you don't have to read something you hate.
No.
If you're a fiction person, read fiction.
Yeah.
If you're a history nerd, read history. Biographies. If it's a productivity book, don't make it something that's going to make you feel guilty. Something you're genuinely interested in. Just reading is a great opportunity to slow the pace of your mind and focus, but still be able to learn a lot.
Yeah, and understand that can be a struggle. So you want to do things to try and, keep a book in front of you. Oh, I'm reading that book and it's sitting here at the table so I see it and think about it. I'm doing those things to help it make those things happen. I think that'll help you kind of move in that right direction.
Yeah. The final item you could do is making time for rest days in your routine. There's a reason that God gave Israel the Sabbath. He said the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. God knows that we need rest. So don't ignore that. Don't ignore that need in your life.
Yeah, I worked at a church one time, and they gave you a certain amount of vacation every year, and it increased as you worked there longer. But their whole thing was you can't bank these. You had to use them. They wanted everyone to use all of their vacation days for the year.
Yep.
And I thought that was such a good policy of you have to go get away from everything because they didn't want you to burn out. And a lot of people, I don't want to take my vacation days. I can bank them up and do this and do that. No, take your vacation. Get away. Do things. Even if you don't go anywhere. What do they call it? A staycation where you stay home. That's fine. Just do something that's intentional. And I think you'll feel better and your quality of life will be a whole lot better.
Yeah. And I think Emily and I have just discovered this for us, and it's been very helpful. We pick 2 days out of the week that are more restful evenings during the week.
That's good.
So for example, this week, you and I had a coaching thing, which we'll probably tell you guys about in the future, but we had it with a few different guys. We were going through a group course on a Tuesday, which was going to take from 6:30 to 8.
Yeah.
Exercising regularly. I exercised, showered, went there.
Yeah.
So we made Monday a chill day.
Yeah.
To where it wasn't the whole day, but just for 2 hours from 7 to 9. We were just together.
Yeah.
We were just chilling. And that really helped me be more effective. I visibly noticed the difference in my mindset, knowing hey, I can make today a grind until 8 or 9 p.m.
Yeah.
because I had that day yesterday.
That's
or
good.
I can do that today because I'm looking forward to the day tomorrow.
Yeah.
Setting up those little moments can really help be effective for you.
Yeah, it really can.
So since we've been talking about this for a rather lengthy amount of time.
Yes, we have.
And we still have some tips for making rest and recovery a priority, some just practical tips for you.
Yeah.
We are going to, one, put that in our blog on our website at thrivingman.com. But then two, we're also going to release a post on our social media with this information.
Yeah.
The good thing about this is it'll now be in a format that if you just want to save it and bookmark it and start implementing, you can.
Yeah.
All in all, rest is important. It's not a waste of time. It's not because you're not good enough.
Yeah.
And I think our culture is beginning to wake up to that.
I think so. And I think when you take a journey approach to your life, you understand that there really is no finish line in life. until the very end of your life. But before then, life is going to keep going. And how you live that life is really going to bring the success to you. And it's when you take that long-term approach, and rest and recovery is part of a long-term success approach to life. When you're getting the rest and recovery, you're going to be there more physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. All of those areas happen when you prioritize, okay, I want to bring my very best, so I need to get some rest. That kind of rhymed.
Hey, I want to bring my best, so I need to
Get
rest.
some rest.
Yeah.
That was good.
No, what you said was so good. Because I think a lot of times we think rest will happen by itself if we work hard enough.
Yeah.
That is not how it works.
Yeah.
You have to be just as intentional with your rest as you are with your work. That's how our world is today.
Yeah.
Maybe back in the day when you were farming and the winter season came and there was nothing to do, you got your rest.
Yeah.
But today you can try to be as productive as you want 24/7 until you burn yourself out.
Yeah.
So what we are recommending is get intentional with your rest. Check out the blog for some tips on that, or check out our social media for a post with those tips. We want you to thrive. That's why we call this thing Thriving Man. We don't want you to just make it from week to week. We want you to be able to enjoy the journey. Rest is an important part of that physically, mentally, and for your productivity. So try and implement these things in the coming week. You will be glad you did. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Thriving Man podcast. If you want to check out more resources from David and Reese, you can go to thrivingman.com. We'll see you in the next episode.